Why should I feel discouraged? And why should the shadows come? Why should my heart feel lonely? Long for heaven and home. For Jesus is my portion, a constant friend is He. His eyes are on the sparrow, and I know He watches over me. I sing because I'm happy, and I sing because I'm free. Oh, His eyes are on the sparrow, and I know He watches over me. I sing because I'm happy, and I sing because I'm free. Oh, His eyes are on the sparrow, and I know He watches over me. Good morning to all of you out there. Welcoming you to our Sunday school. Coming to you from Marshall Temple Church, located 430 Durban Street, Gary, Indiana. And I am Mother Marshall today, I'll say. I'm coming to you representing the Sunday school department right now, and we have a wonderful lesson today. And we're asking you to come around and join us and get your Bibles and your books and your commentaries and whatever you may have, your electronic equipment, whatever you may use for Sunday school, and just come around today and enjoy our Sunday school today. Coming to you March 6th, 2022. The year is moving on, March 6th. And the lesson that we're having today, the subject is freed from captivity. Freed from captivity. And we're back in Ezra, EZRA, and we're in the first chapter, the 1st through the 18th verse. And then we'll go down to the 11th chapter. 18, and then the 11th chapter, the 2:64 through 70. That's what we'll be reading from today. We'll go down to the 11th verse, and then we'll go from Ezra 2:64 through the 70th verse in Ezra, the 2nd chapter. Our golden text or key text today is coming to you from Ezra 2:6-8, and it reads as follows. Some of the chief of the fathers, when they came to the house of the Lord, which is at Jerusalem, offered freely for the house of God to set it up in His place. Ezra 2:68. And that is our beginning of our lesson today. Our background scriptures, you can read the entire chapter of Ezra, the 1st chapter, and they'll kind of give you some idea of what our lesson is about today. And of course, we're talking today about the king and what God did for him and what God did for His people through the efforts of the king. So we want to talk to you today. It says the text about Ezra It tells the story of the Jewish people during the 6th and 15th century before Christ. And in 586 BC, the Babylonian Empire, led by King Nebuchadnezzar. And we had talked to you about that before because he laid siege on Judah and Jerusalem. And he captured the Jews once again. And I told some of you that some of them stayed down there captured around 70 years, around 70 years. But we're going to talk today about some that the Lord sent the king after, and how he brought some of them up to do a chore, to do something that God wanted to have done. He didn't bring all of them, but he freed some of them for that purpose. You can look in 2 Kings 24, 10 through the 14th verse, and then go to the 25th chapter as well, and read 1 through the 10th verse, and you'll kind of read about how King Nebuchadnezzar, how he captured the Jewish people in Jerusalem and Judah. Okay, the siege culminated with the destruction of the Jewish temple. So when they went in and captured the Jews, they destroyed that beautiful temple, that they worshiped at. It had all the gold and the silver and made of all kinds of things. They destroyed that. And they took a lot of the beautiful treasures with them when they went back over in Babylon with Nebuchadnezzar. They took the things out of the temple, and the temple was totally destroyed. And the children of Israel had no need of the temple anyway because they had captured them. And they had taken all of them out of Israel, out of Jerusalem and Judah, but the poor people. And you can go over there and you can find that over in the 24th chapter of Chronicles, 2 Chronicles. Go to the 24th chapter of 2 Chronicles, beginning at the 14th verse, and it would tell you about the people that they took. They took all of the people that had talent or that had money or had any kind of prestige or power, but the poorest one, they left them there. So there was one time it was a blessing to be poor because they didn't want them, you see. And so what you also may look at 2 Kings, the 20th chapter, the 16th verse, where it had been prophesied that this was going to happen by Isaiah. So he had prophesied this, way before this happened, you see. So Babylon rule, it said, was short-lived. They kept a lot of them down that 70 years, but some of it was short-lived because in 539 BC, it says the Persian king Cyrus destroyed the Babylonian Empire. And so then that's what he did. He solidified the Persian Empire in the region and extended it from modern-day Greece to the modern-day India right now. So anyway, what he did, God called him and he told Cyrus that what he wanted him to do, and he used him. That's what we're going to read down later. We're going to find how the Lord did that in the lesson today. But a decree came to him that he should go and rebuild the temple, So Cyrus' decree fulfilled a promise made earlier by Jeremiah. See, Jeremiah in Jeremiah 29 and 10 had a prophecy that this was going to happen, and this fulfilled it when Cyrus went down to fulfill the prophecy by bringing some of the people out of exile so that they could help build the temple back. But he didn't bring a lot of people. It says in Isaiah 10 and 22, it said he only brought a small remnant of people. That means a small quantity, the amount that he needed to help build the temple. So that's just why our lesson will start. We're going to start the first verse in Ezra 11 and 1. So now in the first year of Cyrus, king of Persia, that the word of the Lord by the mouth of Jeremiah, see, might be fulfilled. The Lord stirred up the spirit of Cyrus, king of Persia, that he made a proclamation throughout all his kingdom, and put it also in writing, saying, Thus saith Cyrus, the king of Persia, the Lord God of heaven had given me all the kingdoms of the earth, and he had charged me to build him an house at Jerusalem, which is in Judah. Now don't tell me what God can't do. What God did, he went down and stirred up the spirit of Cyrus the king. And he was the king. And he stirred it up in him. Because he knew why he stirred him up. He was able to go and build the temple. He was able to go and get people. And he had influence on people. So that's why he needed him. He stirred his spirit up. You see. A lot of times when you don't understand what's happening to you, and God is on your mind and on your heart and telling you that you have to go and do something, you don't understand why, but you just pushed and pushed to do it. Sometimes God is stirring up your spirit, you know. And so he stirred his spirit up. And for him, now he did not have all the money to go and build this fabulous temple that God wanted to be built back in Jerusalem, where Nebuchadnezzar and them had destroyed it when they come in and captured the Jewish people. Now, they would not have had to capture the Jewish people if the Jewish people had been obedient to God's word. But you see, when they got freed from being down in captivity for 40 years and came onto the land of plenty, then what they started doing what they want to do and started sinning. Now, I don't know if they started right away, but eventually they started sinning, and God stepped back and let them be captured again. And so they was captured then, but they, in the midst of them being captured, the king Nebuchadnezzar, and them, they destroyed the temple. They destroyed God's house. And it's not good to mess, with the Lord's house. So they destroyed his house. So the Lord needed that house to be put back together. So what he did, he stirred up the king of Persia. He stirred him up and told him to go down there and fulfill the prophecy that Jeremiah had already prophesied that was going to happen. Now, 3, who is there among you of all his people? Of all his people, his God be with him, and let him go up to Jerusalem, which is in Judah, and build the house of the Lord, God of Israel. He is the God which is in Jerusalem. So he's letting them know that he's trying to request people and find out who's able to go and who want to go. You see, the things that's happening to us today is a lot of people don't want to go and do anything for God. Don't want to do anything for the house of God. Don't want to do anything for God's people. They done got so that it's me-minded hours. They're not concerned about the God's house. People that's going to the house of God and saying that they're worshiping in the house of God. A lot of them will not do anything to help in the house of God. They just sit there and look at it. They'll go and things that need to be done, they leave it to a few. They won't help. Some of them are able to help, just like Cyrus was. He was able to go up and do. And he did, and he obeyed God. God is stirring up a lot of people in the church and tell them you can help. But some people are so selfish and so stingy, and they want everything for themselves and me, mine, and ours, that they don't even look at when God is trying to stir them up. But when God does that, he's trying to bless you. He's trying to bless you, give you long life, give you health and strength, because you're out there doing his will and doing his work. And that's what he did. He got up and he started doing what the Lord told him to do. And look what he said, number 4. And whosoever remaineth in any place where he sojourneth, you see, where he resides, that means where he lived, let the men of this place help him with silver and with gold and with goods and with beasts, besides the freewill offering for the house of God that is in Jerusalem. He said, wherever the people are, whosoever is still there, whosoever's up there, tell them to give offerings, give money, give gold, not just something that you don't want anymore. They're asking for gold and silver. That's what he's saying. He's asking for gold and silver, and then a free will offering. And you know what you say? I'm tired of them taking up offering. Every time I go to church, that's all they want is money, money, money. This is what God told him to go down there and do, and told him to tell the people to take it out of their pockets and help pay to build that church, to build that temple. You don't think he's still doing that today? A lot of the pastors and things are suffering because people are sitting in their congregation and they're able to give. And they have all this money stacked up, laid up somewhere, where somebody can come and steal and kill and do everything else to take it from them. And they have an opportunity to invest in the house of God, and they won't do it. They'll sit there and let the poor people that's struggling and trying to sell dinners and trying to do this and trying to do that and help. And you sitting right there, some people sitting right there on money that could help, money that they'll never use, money they're going to leave back here. They're going to leave here. And they could sit there and make it easier on people and on the pastors and different ones. They're trying to keep the house of God open. Even if they're not trying to build a temple, they're trying to keep the temple open. And they sit there and they will sit and see them struggling and act as though that's their church. It wasn't the Cyrus's church. It wasn't the King Cyrus's church. God told him to go up in and ask for the money. It wasn't his church. He told him to be the leader of it and go up and tell the people to do it. But he didn't tell them to do it all by himself. But a lot of the people to sit right there and let the leader just struggle and struggle and struggle and know that they're struggling and know that they had a money that they laying up and they're not doing anything with that they could help more than what they do. And some just give the bare minimum all the time. Some people been giving $1 ever since they've been going to church. And no, $1 won't hardly buy anything now. You can't even go to the dollar store anymore now and buy anything for $1 because now they done moved that up to $1.25. And they'll sit there and give $1. And know the church is in need. Know the gas and lights going up. Know everything is going up. Know all of any kind of construction. Anything you want to do for the sick and the shut in or want to do for the helpless or the homeless. Knowing it's going up. And they'll sit right there and give this and pretend like they poor. And let me tell you something. You keep pretending, you will be. I don't have it. Pretend. Always a poor mouth, pitiful mouth. Somebody always got to help you. And you just pretending and holding things back and won't help. But Cyrus was told by God to go up in there and you ask them for their gold. And they look at number 4. You ask them for their gold and their silver and their goods. It could mean food or anything, you know. He said, and with beasts, even with the animals that they needed to carry wood, to carry the timber and stuff that they needed. Ask for the beast, and then someone would use the beast to eat, you know, while they're working. They ask for your beast, and then he says, and your free will offering. You go and ask them for it. That's what the Lord will let them say. For the house of God that is in Jerusalem. Because God was intending for that house to be built. And what he did, he chose a king that had the authority, that had strength to go and do what he asked him to do. Then rose up the chief. That's the tribal chief. That's the one that was over the different tribes. You know, God, remember it was 12 tribes. And these are the heads of the tribes. So then he said, then rose up the chief of the father of Judah. That was the head of the tribe of Judah. And Benjamin, the head of the tribe of Benjamin. And the priests and the Levites. And I told you over and over about the Levites. Which with all them whose spirit God raised up. God raised up their spirits too. You see what it said? To go up and build the house of the Lord, which is in Jerusalem. See, a lot of us not listening to what God did. God raised up a lot of our spirits too. And you refuse to do it because you're stingy. You want to keep everything for yourself. And a lot of times God has raised up your spirit and told you to get up and go and do for the house of God. And sometimes you won't do it. But he said he came back and he got the heads of the different tribes and told them, the heads of Judah and the Benjamin and the priests. And he raised their spirits up and said, you get up. And the Levites. And the Levites have always been the one, I told you, around the church, doing the works for the church. They do everything. They sing, they pray, they preach, they do all the carpentry, cooking, whatever the porters, whatever they have to do. That's what the Levites were there in the church for. He said, and they came from the tribe of Levi, the tribe of Levi. With all them whose spirit God had raised up to go up to build the house of the Lord, which is in Jerusalem. And all they that were about them strengthened their hands with vessels. Look at that. The people that was there, they obeyed what God sent the Cyrus, the king, to tell them. They didn't say, God got to come and tell me because I'm not going to do anything. No, they didn't. The Spirit of God raised up Cyrus, raised up the tribe, the chiefs of the tribes, raised up the priests, and they all was on one accord. And they was all together, and they went and told the people what God said do. And he says, number 6, and all they that were about them strengthened their hands with vessels of gold. That means they went and found their gold and gave it to them so they could build a church. With vessels of gold, with vessels of silver, with gold, with goods, with the beasts, and with the precious things besides all that was willingly offered. He said it was willingly offered. See, that's why we don't get our blessing. A lot of times, people in the church raising the offering, trying to take care of build something or try to pay the bills and all that. And the people are so angry because they don't want you to take up the offering. And they give, some of them give it, but they're not willingly giving. They give it because someone's watching them. They don't want the pastor to say, "Oh, you're not giving anything." But they'll give it sometimes, but not willingly, and they don't get blessed either. But he said they willingly gave this to build a house of God because this is what God's request, that he wanted that Jerusalem temple of God built back because it was destroyed, you see. Also, Cyrus the king brought forth the vessels of the house of the Lord, which Nebuchadnezzar had brought forth out of Jerusalem and had put in the house of his gods. Now Nebuchadnezzar, when he went in and captured the Jews, the Israelites, when he went in and captured them in Jerusalem and Judah, then what he did, he went in the temple and got all their gold and silver and all them artifacts and all them statues and all the things that they had and beautiful different kind of paintings and all that stuff. And they took it because it was valuable. And they took all those things and they put it into his house over there. That's what he did down in Babylon. He took all that good, pretty stuff and fine stuff and took it over there with him and put it in Babylon. Now, he didn't melt it down. He could have melted down, for gold, but he didn't. He left it beautifully in the temples over there in the Babylon. And when Cyrus went over there and conquered Babylon, then what happened was they went into the temple and got that stuff and brought it right back to Jerusalem so they can put it back in the house of God where it belonged. Number 8, even those did Cyrus king of Persia bring forth by the hand of Mithridates the treasurer, and numbered them unto Shabazar the prince of Judah. So he brought them and he numbered them as he brought them, so that no one could say he took them, He numbered them and brought them in and put them where they belong, And all the vessels of gold, of silver, number 11, and all the vessels of gold and of silver was 5,400. The vessels of gold and of silver were 5,400, 54,000, 5,400, that's what it was. And all these did Shabazar bring up with them of the captivity that were brought up from Babylon into Jerusalem. And they went and brought it all up and brought it into Jerusalem and did as the Lord had directed them to do. Freed from captivity. That's our subject. Freed. They were released from captivity. And as I said, Cyrus went down and got a remnant. He didn't bring all of them up then. Because we had talked earlier about who went down and got the others. Jeremiah went and got some. But he didn't bring all of them. But he brought the remnants of those, a small amount of them, the ones that needed to help him build the temple. That's what he brought. I don't know if the Lord intended for him to bring any more than what he needed to build the temple, because it wasn't ready for them yet. They had to wait till the temple got built. And Ezra 2 and 64, it says, the whole congregation together was 42,303 scores. So the congregation was a 42,370, because 3 scores is 70. So that's what it says. The whole congregation was 42,370 people. That's how many people that temple had to hold. And he had to build a temple. He had to build a big temple. And he needed all the gold and the silver and the help that he could find, and the workers that he could find. That's what he needed. But he got the job done because God chose him, and God stirred up the spirit in him for him to get it done. And he didn't say that he couldn't do it. He didn't try to not to do it. He did what the Lord told him to do. He was guided by God's direction, and he went and he did exactly how God told him to get it done. And a lot of times the reason we can't get things done because we don't do it like God say do. We do it like we want to do it. You know, we start bringing things into church that we're not supposed to bring in there, doing it our way because we can't wait for God's way. So a lot of time we do it our way, and it does not work out. We have to do it God's way, and that's what he wanted him to do. He says, besides their servants and their maids, of whom there were 7,330 and 7, and there were among them 200 singing men and singing women. Oh, they had to be a choir. He says, besides their servants and their maids, of whom there were 7,330 maids, 37 maids, and there was among them 200 singing men and singing women, and 200 singing women. Ain't that something? I mean, that choir had to be something else. He brought them all over so they could be in the temple. So he had his people, who he needed to go. The remnant that he brought out of Babylon, he had them ready to start the service and start the church and start the temple once he got it built. And then he says, their camels, number 66, their horses were 730 and 6. Their horses were 736. Their mules were 245 and 5. That means 245. He had 245 mules. He had his mules and he had his horses, okay, to do what they needed to do. Their camels were 435, and their asses were 6, which was like a mule. Were 5, and their asses 6,720, and that's what they needed. Though they needed those for working and riding and whatever they needed for, but they had them. They was there. And some of the chief of the fathers, when they came to the house of the Lord, which is at Jerusalem, offered freely for the house of God to set it up in his place. Those that came, he says the one that came to the house of God, some of the chiefs of the fathers, that mean the heads of the people came, and they freely offered their services to set up the house of God. It was nobody backing down, trying to not do what God say do, you see, because they were freed. God had freed them. They had been down in Babylon, and they had been treated like slaves and mistreated and probably hungry sometime and beaten and all kinds of stuff when you were in slavery, when you captured. They probably went through all that. They probably were so glad to get out till they were coming and they doing whatever they had to do. The chiefs, they said the head of the tribes, that's what they were coming and doing. And look what he says, number 69. They gave after their ability unto the treasure of the work 100 drams of gold. They had gold, and they gave according to their ability. And that's what the pastors try to tell the people in the church. You give according to your ability. You don't worry about, she only gave $2, so I'm going to give $2 too. No, you give according to what you can afford to give, to your ability. Some can give more than others. Some have more than others. Some have been blessed financially more than others. Some are physically able to do more than others. You do what you can do according to your ability. That's what God expects of us. Not to say, well, she only gave 100, I'm going to give 100. And you can give 1,000 and you give 100 because she gave 100. Maybe that's all she could give, you see. And that's what he said, according to your ability. And that's what they gave. According to their ability, that's how they gave the gold and the silver to do what the Lord wanted them to do. And then it said they offered it freely. They didn't go out and talk about it, lead the church. Girl, I went to church today, and that pastor asked me for some money, and I didn't want to give him none, but I gave it because all the people were looking at me. But you know what? I'm tired of him asking me for my money. They didn't give it like that. They gave it with a free heart. A free heart. And that's why God blessed them so immensely. The Jewish people are blessed. They are blessed because they give. And this is what we have to do. We have to learn that that's how you get out of whatever you in, by giving. The more you give, the more you receive. You hold it tight, you don't get nothing. You know, that's just like sand in your hand. You can pick sand up in your hand and hold it tight. And nothing can come in, but the sand can slip out. It can seep right on out of your hands. I don't care how tight you hold it. That sand will seep out of your hand. But it's so tight, nothing can get in. You see, and that's why when we get our little monies and stuff, and we think we just hold it so tight, and we don't want to help no one, don't want to do anything for anyone, don't want to help the church, don't want to help the poor. You see people on the street, I'm not gonna give them nothing. They out there, you know. Listen, what is 50 cents or $1 gonna hurt you? If that's all you got, you broke anyway, and you'll pass them up, you know. And it's not that many out there. And you'll pass them out. I know you may not have nothing to give 10 or 15 of them that day, but you can give one person something, and you pass them right on by like you don't see them. And you don't know if they're hungry. They telling you they are. And the Bible didn't tell you to decide it no way. He said if they ask you, give it to them. That's what he said. And the people sitting there, can I have $1? Can I have 50 cents? Can I have a quarter? And you won't give them nothing. You judging them. Oh, they better go and get a job like me. Or, oh, they just out there to want to go drinking. If you don't see them going drinking, you can't judge them that they're going and drinking. And the 50 cents or the $1 that you give them is not enough to make them do anything. But it's enough to bless you. God see that you kind and you're able to give somebody something, he'll give you more. And I know a lot of them are some people out there trying to con their way. I'm not crazy. I know that. But I look at it this way. You may con me. God know what you're doing. But I'm not, if I don't give you but $1 or $2, it's not hurting me, but I'm still helping you. They can go buy you a hamburger. They can go get you some beans at the store. They can, you know what I'm saying? They can get you a loaf of bread. You know, if it's not but $1, they can give you a loaf of bread. You know, you go and get that, or you know, whatever, orange or apple. You can go get something with that $1. And then if you conning and you don't need it, God knows that too. But it hasn't taken that much from me. But you have shown compassion, and you have given it freely. This is what they're saying. They gave it freely, you know, because you know why? They were freed from captivity. They know how it felt to sit there and be in captivity. And people are mistreating you and giving you hardly no food and working you like a dog, and you know you don't have any kind of control of your own family and your own self. They know how it feels. Don't you think we don't know? A lot of us in our different races and stuff, we know what it feels like to be down up under. A lot of us have been homeless. A lot of us have had no car to drive in. A lot of us have had some of us have barely had food to eat, a little bitty food, you know, or didn't hardly have no clothes to wear. It's a whole lot of you listening to me today that's been in that condition. And then when you get out of the condition and the Lord blesses you, you look down on somebody else. But these people freely gave their gold. They didn't just give $2 or $3. They gave gold and silver and free will offerings. And then they came back. Not only did they do that, they came back and set up the church. Once it got all built and stuff, they come back and set it up. So it'd be ready for the people to worship in. See, that's the kind of people that God got to do. That's the kind of people he wants to do his work. He stirred up the spirit in them. And some of us never get the spirit stirred up to do nothing for anybody. Just tight. You know, don't want anybody to ask you for anything, you know. Some people won't even sit up there and eat up all the food in a restaurant and don't want to give nobody $1 for leave a tip. And know that those people are not making very much money. And you won't even give them $1. Get on up and wipe your face and go on out. Don't give them nothing. You know that's wrong. And you not that, if you sitting up there eating at a restaurant, in my opinion, you are not that tight that you can't leave a quarter, 50 cents, $1, something. But you're just so tight and stingy, just looking out for self. This is not these kind of people. These people had been in captivity. They was freed from captivity. They knew how it felt to be in captivity. You see. And the God had stirred them up and told them to get up and go and do this job. And that's what they did. And then the last verse is the next one before that, number 69, I was on that one. They gave after their ability unto the treasure of the work 70 and 1,000 drams of gold. Look how much they give. And 5,000 pounds of silver and 100 priest garments. They even gave them garments for the priest to wear. Now, you know they was doing what God said. They went and bought the garments. So the priests can have the right, proper garments in the new temple. And the last verse. So the priests and the Levites and some of the people and the singers and the porters and the Nethinims dwelt in the city, and all Israel in their cities. They dwelt in their cities, and all Israel in their cities. So they stayed there. They didn't have to go back. See, they were free. And so they all stayed. You know, the one that came to do the job for the temple that the king had freed, the remnants of them that he had freed, they were able to stay there in the city because they had done the work that God told them to do. Now later on down the road, we'll find where all of them was freed eventually and came from Babylon, you know, and came back to Jerusalem, you know. But they didn't come all at once. They came in different, you know, in different time span, and different people went and got them, you see, and brought them back to Jerusalem. But that took some time, you know. But these people here, God freed them and allowed them to come, you see, and come when he came with, you know, with Darius the king. Cyrus the king. I'm sorry. And so the Lord has to provide directions for us. Sometimes we're in trouble, and the Lord provides direction for us. And he charges us to go and do things because he knows that we are capable. We are capable of doing just what he asked us to do. And that's why he charges us, you know. He asks us to go and do certain things because he knows we are able to do those things. Everyone is not able to do everything. Some people he charges you to go, and some people love to teach and to holler and be a missionary and be a preacher and all that. They like that. You see, because they showing out or they doing what they want to be in front of people. But they don't like to work. And these people in that temple, they had to work. It wasn't just teaching and hollering. It was working, you see. And so God will anoint his people to go out and do something. Just like he anointed Cyrus. He anointed him to go and do that. And people, well, he wasn't a preacher. No, he wasn't. But God anointed him to go and do that job. And fulfill what Jeremiah had prophesied. That's what God did. And God's prophecy, his prophets, when they prophesied, that what they prophesied is going to come to pass if you're a true prophet. Jeremiah was a true prophet. And so that had to be fulfilled, what he had prophesied. And about the temple being built. And God did that. And so then when God came and he gives you the authority, he gives you what you need to do the job. When you're willing to do what God asks you to do, God gives you what's needed. And when Cyrus came over to Jerusalem, you know, when he went over first of all to Babylon, you know, he got the money and everything. And so he was able to be over the treasure so that he would be able to go and get what he needed. So when God tells you to go and do something, he gives you, you know, what is needed. You know, that's what he does. So we see now that the church, sometimes the churches feel that sometimes they are captive. They're captive. Because you know why? A lot of times they go through so many things in the world that are against the churches. And a lot of things we probably haven't seen what we're going to see that's going to get the church and capture people. We hope and pray that God blesses our land, that we don't get captured or get into a war, you know, where you can't go to the church. We have not experienced that in America. And I hope God just have mercy on us and don't let us have to feel that, where they come and capture the people where they cannot go and serve in the church. Now, they didn't have any, Nebuchadnezzar didn't have any concern or any respect, you know, for the Jewish people and their temple, because that's why he tore it up. He tore it up and then took everything out that was worth anything, because he didn't have any respect, you know, for God's house. And so a lot of times that's what's happening, you know, that when you go, these people are being captured in different ways, that they don't have respect for God. And so God was determined that temple would be redone when he released the children of Israel. Because number one, he allowed them to stay captured. I mean, he could have just, you know, not allowed them to be captured, or if he did, he could have allowed them to come back quicker, than they did. But apparently they weren't ready to come back because the Lord did not let them come back for 70 years. That's a long time. Because they was in the wilderness for 40. So that means they had to be some hard-hearted people, that they did not obey God in 70 years. So that meant a lot of people, a lot of people died over there in Babylon. A lot of the Jewish people died. And that's what I noticed of the lesson, that you're gonna obey God. I don't care whether he has to keep us in bondage or whatever. If he asks us to do something, we are going to obey him, one way or the other. And so we don't want God to have to put us in captivity. We want to stay free. And how you stay free? You stay on your knees. And the ones out there that I'm talking to, that I don't know who you are, but if you are stingy and not generous, you and not willing to do what God say do, this lesson is for you. You need to ask God to help you to learn how to be generous and willing to do what God say do, and not stand behind others. Let everybody do it but me, or let them do it. That's what we have. A lot of people in the church got a habit of sitting back and letting one or two people do everything, and you don't feel you're obligated to do anything. But we are obligated to do for the Lord. We cannot just sit here and hold our hands. We are obligated to do for the Lord, and that's what we need to do. So we thank the Lord for that. We just hope that you enjoyed our lesson today, talking about free from captivity. And we have to ask ourselves another thing too, is that what stirs us up? What makes us feel that we can, when God is calling us to do something? God calls us to do things too. He's not just sitting there looking at us and we don't have anything to do. God got things that he wants us to do too. He wants us to do things for him. And he got a way, and we got to figure out a way how we can recognize God's voice, when he's telling us to do something. And so another thing we can do, we can learn how to serve our neighbors. There are neighbors that have different views from us, different views, but yet we can serve. A lot of those people that was in there with Cyrus, they had different views, but they came there to help and work. They were different people coming from different areas, but they were there to work. And so we have to learn how to deal with people that got different views, than we have. Everybody doesn't believe the same way we do, So we are got to understand also that we have Christians out there that have been exiled from the church. They've left the church. That's what I mean when I say exile. And they've gone out into the world. And they are out there. And we are to find ways to bring them back to the church. That's our job. We can't just say, well, I got me, mine, and ours, and I'm all right now. I don't have to worry about nobody else because I got what I need. That's not what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to go and try to help. Now, sometimes the Bible said, don't give that which is holy to the dogs. Sometimes we have to allow people to be free and go on and do as they want to, because some people will say things to you that's not holy, that's not righteous. And sometimes you have to let it go and pray over them, But there are some that you can go and be gentle and talk to them and tell them that you love them and invite them to come back to church, And don't just try to break up the church. They left, girl. A lot of people just glory in somebody walking away from the church. They just have a fit. They just enjoy it so much. Girl, do you know they left Bishop so-and-so church? And girl, they over some so-and-so. And they just love that. But that's not what God wants us to do. Just like those children of Israel. He didn't leave them over there in Babylon. He brought them back. Now, when they repented, he brought them back. And that's what our job. When the people go exile, when they leave the church and go out in the wilderness, out in the world, and start doing things, we need to practice to try to find a way to bring them back to Christ. That's our job. So I hope you enjoy what we were saying, and we have to recognize when God called us to action. When he calls us to action, we do not want to be found not obeying his call, just like Cyrus. Cyrus obeyed his call, and that task was a great task. And regardless of how strong the task is, we have to ask God to help us to recognize when he called us, and help us to recognize and help us to be able to accept the responsibility that God is placing upon us. So I hope you enjoyed our lesson today. We're going to say to you that if you'd like to send something to us, we have a cash app. It's a $MTC 59. The $MTC 59. And if you'd like to send something to us by mail, you can also do so. That's P.O. Box 534, Portage, Indiana 46368. And I'm going to say to you, continue to pray for us. Pray for my family. I'm going to pray for yours. And meet us back here on Wednesday for prayer. And may God bless each and every one of you.